Hi, I'm Lisa Prather, and welcome to The Voice of Health with our host, Dr. Robert Prather of the Prather Practice, where lives are changed every day through the natural approach to healthcare. We're talking today about the gut, a key to children's health. And what is meant by gut health?
Well, that's sort of a strange type of in most people's paradigm.
Right.
Thinking about your gut health isn't really something that you kind of first think about.
Doesn't sound like a medical terminology.
Right. Why is that important? But when you're talking about a gut health, that's the main way that things come into your body. Mm-hmm. If you laid out the area of a person's gut, it would cover a football field.
Wow.
So, there's an awful lot of contact that's there, mm-hmm. and it's like a hole that goes through you, that things,
Literally. Yeah,
it goes from one end to the other, and that's how you absorb your nutrients, you take in your water, mm-hmm. Everything kind of is centered on that, and it's a huge area. And because it's a huge area, it's the main way that things come in and pass out. Mm-hmm. It has a very big key to your health, which starts to make sense. Just how mm-hmm. that is such a big area. So, the gut health actually involves there's living organisms in your gut. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, if you count the cells that aren't you in your gut and compare it to the number of cells that is you, they actually outnumber you.
The ones that are not part of you, from the outside.
In other words, they live inside of you. Oh. So the things that live...
That's interesting to think about.
Yeah, the things that live inside of you, aren't actually have your cellular DNA. Mm-hmm. But, the number of cells actually outnumber you and is the number one influence on your health. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about, one, you produce a lot of chemicals that go through the gut, and that has a huge effect. There is the absorption ability. There is the whole huge area of absorption that's involved. There are creatures that live inside of you that are essential. If you didn't have them, you would die. Mm-hmm. So there's an awful lot that's involved in that. A lot of chemical reactions, a lot of processes that go on that we are just now really starting to discover and start to understand.
Well, and when you said a length of a football field, and I'm thinking how that's all squished and
right. There's actually there's little cilia that go up and down just all over the place. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge area. If you stretch it out, remove it and stretch it out, it's about 30 feet.
Wow.
Long. Mm-hmm. And then if you spread it out, it covers a whole football field.
Mm. Interesting. So we're talking about, the gut, a key to children's health. Why is the gut health so important, especially with children? I know later on in our show we're going to have a testimony from one of our patients about her two daughters mm-hmm. That came in with gut issues and had been all over to doctors trying to get help. We'll hear their story later in the show. But why is gut health so important with children?
Well, it's the National Institute of Health is starting to do has really been going into research, and it's really just focusing in on the gut. And when you're talking about the gut, it's the number one determinant of the health of the person, mm-hmm. is what they found. But it's even more important for children because children don't have. When you become an adult, there's a change. You're much more protected. Mm. But when you're a child, you're actually more susceptible to gut problems than you are as an adult, and has a bigger influence on your health and well-being.
Because of less protection?
Less protection. There's a different immune system. Mm. There is a higher absorption rate. One of the things is that, especially with the brain and the nervous system, there's a higher level of protection when you're an adult as opposed to a child. So children, if they have problems with the gut, it goes right to the brain. Whereas with an adult, it has a less of an absorbability. So a child is, if a adult gets an infection in the gut, it has a lot of devastating effects. If a child gets an infection in the gut, it's much more devastating than it is to an adult. Just because of the difference in the immune system, in the physiology, and in the barriers that are actually there as an adult as opposed to a child. So there's a huge amount of influence in everyone's life, but even more so in a child as opposed to an adult.
Yeah, it's important. You hear children say, "I have a tummy ache," or taking that seriously.
Certainly,
especially if it's frequent.
Yeah, you see little babies, that double up because their tummies sore. It's a very, very sensitive type of area, and that's a bad sign. That something's going on right away at that point. So those tummy cramps in babies is an important sign things aren't working right.
So are these findings, with gut health, and you said they're doing more research on this. Are these findings backed by science? Yes,
we had mentioned that the National Institute of Health is doing a very major study on gut health, and the information that's coming out of there is quite startling. They had already figured out before they started the study just that the gut was very, very important to health. What they didn't realize to the extent, the findings are revolutionary in the course of healthcare. Matter of fact, our entire concept of how we're going to be treating diseases, cardiovascular, cancer, autoimmune diseases, is completely changing due to this research. That really the gut is the major area that we should be having the greatest effect on the health and well-being of people, and really looking at that and developing a whole new system of treatments and medicines and thought patterns on health and well-being. So it's probably one of the most revolutionary concepts of gut health since we discovered bacteria and viruses.
Oh, wow.
Is what they've actually stated. And, the effects of the pharmaceuticals is starting to be understood, and what we've been thinking and how we've been treating basically is completely wrong. So it's really quite a revolutionary time to be involved in healthcare, and the gut really is going to be the key area that we're looking at.
So I want to just get clarification. When we talk about the gut, we're talking from oral, all the way. That includes just the large intestine and the small intestine. But
right. You're talking about from the mouth all the way through. You're also talking about the pancreas, the influence of the liver.
Okay.
The organs that actually excrete into the gut, too, also has a huge effect on that.
Interesting. Well, what children should be screened for gut issues?
Well, to be honest with you, everyone should be screened, every year. It should be just part of every child's annual checkup. But when you're talking about, who should actually be thinking about those,
right.
more in line along those lines are really more the children at risk. Any child that has any learning disabilities, any child that is having tummy problems, obviously, would be one thing you would think of. Allergies, any child that's having eczema,
ADHD,
ADHD, any of those different types of learning disabilities should be checked out with any type of gut issues, autoimmune issues, absolutely. When you're talking about even autoimmune, cancer they're finding out is actually oftentimes originating in the gut. And if you can get that under control, that you can do a tremendous amount on prevention along those lines. So, the as you're thinking about what type of children should be checked, any child that's having any type of health issues.
And what children, I think you've already answered this, but I want to make sure, what children are especially at risk?
Well, the children that are at risk, when you're talking about underlying problems, any child that is having ear issues, otitis media, would be a big sign that there's something wrong with the gut, because there's a very strong relationship between ear infections and gut health. That's one of the reasons that antibiotics aren't really recommended for that, because any child that has had an antibiotic should be checked on their gut. So just having an antibiotic is at risk for gut health issues that could lead to other problems later on in life. But if they've had 6 or more antibiotic treatments from the ages of 5 and under, that is sort of like a disaster waiting to happen. The chances of having ADD, ADHD, other different types of learning disabilities go right through the roof. So the percentages on that. And antibiotics seems to be a very big factor that destroys the normal gut flora. And the more antibiotics you have, the greater the risk. Also, children who aren't breastfed is a really, really big factor, because breastfeeding has a huge effect on the gut health. Also, vaginal birth also seems to have a very big effect on the health of the individual and on the gut flora. So, the normal type of a procedure. Also, if the mother didn't have a good health flora, then the child's not going to have good health flora. So, as you're looking at those things, the mother, the birth process, getting breast milk for the first year is very important. And the first 6 months, that should be the only thing that they eat. Anything besides that child is at risk for gut health problems.
Well, and you said, antibiotics 4 or 5 times, even 1-2 times, especially when they're so young.
Has a huge effect. Huge effect. So that's always just a risk right there.
And we'll be talking later in the show how to build up the gut and that. Well, we'll be back talking about gut and the health of the brain. You can win a free 60-minute massage in a relaxing spa at the Prather practice. Each month we have a drawing to give away a free massage to one of our lucky Facebook and Twitter fans. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter on our website at thevoiceofhealthradio.com. This is The Voice of Health with Dr. Robert Prather. The Voice of Health Wellness Tip with Dr. Robert Prather of the Prather practice. Why did you incorporate massage into your practice?
I believe that massage is an extremely important part of one's wellness, health regimen. It's something that everyone should have done at least once a month, if not more often, just to maintain a good, healthy type of a program in their system. As you work with the muscles and the soft tissue, you can actually create a tremendous amount of changes that occur. There are hormonal changes, there are physiological changes on balance. It's a very important part of one's health and wellness.
Yeah, it's much more than just feeling good. Well, it feels good, yeah. It's a lot more. What types of massage services do you do at your office?
Well, interestingly enough, there are a lot of different ways that massage actually can be involved in someone's health, and people don't realize how many types of massage there actually are. There's lymphatic, there's muscle, there's deep muscle, there's reflexology, there's electromagnetic, there's neurological, there's ones that can actually wake you up, some that can relax you, some that can balance out your emotional states. So there's a tremendous amount of different types of massage that can be affected on your system.
And who would benefit from massage?
Everyone. But if you have tight muscles, and I'm sure most people out there don't, a higher than average stress level, then massage can really prolong your life, reduce your blood pressure, increase your chances of preventing cardiovascular and cancer, especially if you're in a high-stress position. Definitely take the time out for massage.
Here we have member pricing for our spa services for once-a-month massage at $59 a month.
Wow.
Which is great.
That is good.
Our massage therapist, we have from 11 years experience to 25 years experience with our massage therapist. So,
Yeah.
And there's nowhere else in town that you can get that kind of quality, massage for that price.
It is a medical level massage at that's a very good price.
$59.
Yeah. We also have a medical doctor on staff, nurse practitioner, chiropractic, acupuncture. We have all the diagnostics here so that, you can feel very assured that you have the support, of a whole healthcare professional team that is behind the massage therapist too.
Schedule your appointment at the Prather practice, 317-848-8048. That's 317-848-8048. Or learn more on our website at thevoiceofhealthradio.com. The Prather practice, restoring hope.
I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't. I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't.
You're listening to The Voice of Health with Dr. Robert Prather of the Prather Practice, the most comprehensive wellness center in the Midwest. Well, we're talking today about the gut, a key to children's health. And Dr. Prather, you were talking about a lot of the research now is going toward the gut health and how that is so important in treatment of all disease. You talked about cancer and a lot of the autoimmune diseases and cardiovascular. Because when you think about it, what we bring into our bodies
Is what makes our body.
Right. I think there was a time when doctors didn't have that connection, and I'm hoping that's not true now.
Sure.
Of what you put in your body affected, your body.
Of course.
So important.
It is, and that is. Some of the older doctors still don't seem to think that that's important. And, the research, the science just doesn't back that up.
They said they're going to go back to writing prescriptions for certain diets and exercise.
Right.
We're going to go back to that. Well, why is the gut so important to the health of the brain, especially in a child?
Well, when you're talking about the gut-brain connection, of course, the nutrients that the brain is dependent upon come from the gut. That makes perfect sense. But when you're talking about an adult, there is actually a barrier there that it makes it more difficult to cross. For a child, they're 4 times more susceptible to anything in the gut than an adult is. So let's say that there is a parasitic infection that an adult gets. Which isn't really that uncommon. There can definitely be a lot of effects. There can be a lot of problems, but for a child, it's much more devastating. Children had a very high mortality rate back in the older days. One of the big things that's actually helped with that is because we've improved our sanitation so much better than what we used to.
Right.
If you go to the third world countries and there's a cholera outbreak, where that's actually transmitted through feces getting into water, and then then you take it in, and then there's a disaster that happens with that. Children are much more susceptible than adults from dying from that, just because they have a different immune system. So, there's a much higher susceptibility, but especially to the brain. So if there are toxins that are in the bowels from infections, the chances that it gets up and affects some of the brain function. Matter of fact, one of the things that they've proven is that if a child has a parasitic infection, it lowers the IQ. Every year that they have it, the IQ actually drops. So the ability to actually understand, learn, is highly affected by infections in the gut. Some of the bacterial infections in the gut can also affect learning. We've had children who, they couldn't sit in school. They were being medicated. There was a huge amount of problems that were occurring. Had one child who actually came in, and the mom brought the boy in, said, I know my son's an intelligent child, but they're actually going to keep him back, this grade year. They had said that, it just wasn't working. So we had done several different tests on him, kind of to try to determine what was occurring. We did a stool kit, found that he had a parasitic infection. And I said, let's go ahead and start treating that and see what that does. And he went from a F student within about 3 to 4 months after starting the treatment, he went to straight A's. And, the teachers were amazed. Their pediatrician was, because a lot of other health issues actually disappeared too. He had asthma, he developing other different types of problems, all those disappeared. So, the health of the gut had a huge influence on his learning. We've had, just several children who've come in that were on Ritalin, Concerta, other products along those lines, diagnosed with ADD, ADHD. And we found infections in the gut, got those cleared up, and those problems went away. So, looking at those and determining that those things are actually occurring. Food allergies. Many pediatricians and so-called experts say that, that doesn't influence, which, just does not correlate with science. What they necessarily teach in medical school and what is actually reality, they're teaching things a century old. You know what I'm saying? Without actually getting into the new science of what's actually occurring. That's being proven,
right?
Of what's going on. So looking at the gut and its influence on the brain is hugely critical. And then improving the health along those lines just makes a whole big difference.
Yeah, and as I said in the first segment, our last segment, we will have a testimony story of a mother who brought her 2 daughters in. We see a lot of children with gut issues, and she'll be sharing her story. So what role, we talked about the role of the gut and the health of the brain. I want to go back to something you said, Dr. Prather, about ear infections and how they correlate with what's going on in the gut.
Absolutely.
You had talked about it's this same smooth muscle, or...
Yeah, the eustachian tubes are the same smooth muscle type of material that is found in the small intestine. So if you have an inflammatory process that's affecting the small intestine, it's also going to inflame the eustachian tubes.
So that could be a signal that there's something going on in the gut.
I tell all because we're very good at clearing up otitis media in a very quick type of way, with the natural types of products and different things that we do manually to the ear. Most of the time, a kid can come in screaming with their ear infection and then walk out with just fine. It happens almost 100% of the time. But then you need to get to the root of the problem on why that's actually occurring. And usually we find that it's all related to the gut. And getting the gut fixed clears up the ear permanently so we don't have the reinfections in there.
Well, let's talk about the role the gut plays in autoimmune diseases.
Well, when you're talking about autoimmune diseases, there are, as I explain it to my patients, is that there's 2 immune systems. There's the immune system that protects us from infections and outside types of influences, and then you have the inner immune system, which is involved with the inflammatory process and other different types of repair types of issues. And what has happened is in autoimmune diseases is the outer immune system has broken down and failed. And then we start to ask the inner immune system to kind of take over the job. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of the last line of defense. So you have if you're thinking about an army, you have your soldiers out there, and then you have your supply people, who are in the background who were involved in that, and you had your soldiers wiped out, and now the supply people have to actually take over the fighting. And they're not very good at it. So, when they're stimulated, they're basically involved with dealing with tissue repair. And so they start to attack different tissue where the body's actually attacking itself. The medical approach is to, a matter of fact, a lot of people say, I've had some nurses say, I have an autoimmune disease. What are you going to do about it? I said, I'm going to stimulate the immune system. And they say, well, my immune system is overstimulated, and, we need to kill the immune system further. Mm-hmm. And I says, no, that's not what happened. If you look at your numbers, because we do the blood test to show how the immune system's working, all autoimmune people who have autoimmune diseases have a failed immune system. Mm-hmm. So what you do is you get the immune system working correctly and you get rid of the autoimmune disease. As opposed to the medical approach, which is to then go ahead and wipe out the rest of the immune system. It's a backward types of thought and really doesn't have science behind it.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense. For some reason, it does make sense to the disease model. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't make sense to most scientists, who actually study it. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about autoimmune, with 80% of your immune system around the gut. Mm-hmm. So 80% of your immune system is concentrated on the gut. So does that tell you something? Mm-hmm. So if you have an autoimmune disease, you have to look to the gut to make sure that it's working properly, because that's where most of the stress is actually occurring. So you figure out what is the stressors in the gut that's breaking down your immune system. Get that fixed so that you no longer have the stressors, then you can rebuild the immune system, then you can have a very well-functioning system. Mm-hmm. And autoimmune is not only involved in the ones that we think about, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, but many scientists have actually considered that even like cancer is more of an autoimmune type of problem.
Oh, interesting.
You're talking about type 1 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is actually also very much correlated with the autoimmune type of response. Mm-hmm. So as we can look at that, then it even broadens how many things that are involved in that. Mm-hmm. But the concept that 80% of your immune system is around the gut tells you how important that is for the immune system to actually work properly.
Right.
So looking to the gut for any immune type of issues is really a central type of thing that needs to be done.
Yeah. And I mean, our health is so important, especially at a young age.
It really determines so many things that go on in the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to be talking about treatments here, in the next segment. But what role does the gut play in allergies and eczema?
When you're talking about getting rid of the allergies, is just absolutely critical to look to the gut, because that's where a lot of the stress is coming from. Mm-hmm. But I can think of one little boy who was covered from head to toe with eczema. Mm. And the poor thing, they had to kind of, at night, they had to put mittens on his hands and on a full-length type of pajamas just to keep him from scratching until he bled. And it was just a horrible type of thing. And, it was such a stress on the mom and dad, because one of them would have to stay up with him almost every night to kind of rock him, because he could barely sleep. And it was just a pitiful type of thing. Had been treated ever since he was a baby. And he was 6 years old by the time he came in here. So for 6 years they'd been treating him for the eczema, and we did tests on him and found that he had, again, parasitic infections. And so I went over with the mom, that we're going to need to kill the parasites, and that would actually temporarily increase his eczema, because it was the toxins that were being released by the parasites that was actually causing the reaction on the skin. So we did that. We saw the increase. We were working with that. But we finally got rid of the parasites. It took because there was an on-again, off-again type of thing. It took us 6 months. Mm-hmm. But after that, even now, it's been about 3 years, hasn't had a reoccurrence of eczema. It just all disappeared.
Mm-hmm. So when you get to the root of it.
Getting to the root of the problem, and then following it, doing the checks on that, making sure that everything's okay, and then following up on that is absolutely important.
Okay, when we come back, let's talk about gluten. You hear so much about gluten and why that can be a problem for the gut. Listen to the Voice of Health Radio on your smartphone or tablet on all of the top radio apps available. TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. You can find these apps and more on our website at thevoiceofhealthradio.com. This is The Voice of Health with Dr. Robert Prather. Laughter is the best medicine.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jeff Dunham.
Please help me welcome the most beloved terrorist throughout the world, Ahmed, the dead terrorist.
Did you know I have been adding to my career skills lately?
Doing what?
I am now not just a dead terrorist, I am a dead cyber terrorist. I hacked the Obamacare website.
What happened?
I accidentally made it better. I'm kidding. I love Barack. He and I grew up together. In Hawaii.
Are you frustrated by not getting to the root cause of your health issue? Are you tired of not knowing why you're always fatigued? Are you wanting to say no to toxic drugs? Have you lost hope? Are you just tired of being sick and tired? At the Prather Practice, we want you to know that we have the answers for you. We offer the alternative to the disease care model. We are the drug-free model to health and wellness. At the Prather Practice, we look for the underlying cause of your health problem and not just the symptomatology. Through thorough diagnostics, we find your individual health blueprint for your treatment. Where the disease care model is symptom-based, the structure-function model we practice gets to the root of your health issue. The Prather Practice is the most comprehensive wellness center in the Midwest. Our integrated practice offers you the most treatment options to restore your health and your hope. Learn more about the Prather Practice by calling 317-848-8048 or learn more on our website at thevoiceofhealthradio.com.
Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of loving you. No pill's gonna kill my head.
I'm Lisa Prather, and you're listening to The Voice of Health with Dr. Robert Prather of the Prather Practice, where we get to the root cause of your health issue. We're talking today about the gut, a key to children's health. And Dr. Prather, you said something that was very strong about 80% of our health is around our gut, our immune system. Our immune system.
Right. So, I mean,
the stronger the immune system, the better our health.
Sure. It's the most important way of actually influencing the immune system is the gut.
Well, let's talk about gluten. Gluten is... You know,
I think of one of the late night shows. Actually, went out there. You know, they had the people.
Yeah, they were interviewing. Oh,
and they sit there and they come up and says, you know, do you avoid gluten? And people were like, oh yeah. Well, what is gluten? Not really sure, but I avoid it. What does it do? Why is it bad for you? Don't really know.
Sometimes they don't even admit that, and they go on and on and on.
Yeah, right, and have nothing to do with anything. Yeah,
I notice they don't stop you know, on the Hollywood streets. So enlighten us, Dr. Prather.
Okay, when you're talking about gluten. There is, it's actually a particular set of proteins called gliadin within the gluten that actually is the issue. And, of course, when you're a plant, you have to protect yourself.
When I was a plant.
Yeah, I know. A plant has to protect itself.
Right. So,
how does the plant protect itself against insects that would come by and eat it and destroy it? Especially when you're high in protein and it's very nutritious. So what they do is they develop chemicals that that go in and protect it. So over time, they developed different ways of killing insects. And one of the ways that they did that was in the wheat family, is that it produced an enzyme called gliadin. What gliadin does is it goes in, and on the insects, it actually weakens the bonds that hold the bowel together, and the intestines in the insect explode, and the insect dies if it eats too much of it. So that particular...
You said explodes?
It actually explodes in the gut. They swell and they actually die.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually does the same thing in humans too. So gliadin weakens the bonds in the small intestine so that there's a greater opening, and that's what they call leaky gut. So when you have the bonds that are broken down inside the small intestine that hold it together and keep it tight fit so that things really can't slip through, and still absorb the nutrients that are broken down, that's called a leaky gut.
Okay.
So that's what people are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we are, as humans have been eating wheat and its products for a long time, we've developed a tolerance for it, but some people have a better tolerance than others. But there's a problem that actually occurred when they made up Roundup that actually took the gliadin and then actually concentrated the pesticide. So we actually took what was going on involved with insects and then multiplied it so that we could actually explode the insects' guts quicker. But that pesticide also has the same effect on us. Now, one of the problems is now that they've actually been able to put the more powerful gliadin into the wheat. So they've actually engineered it so it genetically is a much more powerful wheat. Mm-hmm. So what has happened is the gliadin's effect is multiplied by 10 times now in the present food supply.
Wow.
So that's why people are
10
having
times.
more problems on that.
Okay.
Monsanto's the one who actually did the engineering to chemical engineering that actually did the genetic changes.
No.
And then one of the things is that plants have something called gene jumping. So even if the wheat and the products, so it's actually jumped to other plants now also. Mm-hmm. So what we do is people said, well, my grandparents never had any problem with eating wheat, and, what's all this about? And, why are we starting to have the reactions that we have? It's because we've been playing with, chemicals with, like we're God. Mm-hmm. And we've changed the toxicity of the food that we've eaten. Wow. And so, yes, people are much more sensitive. There's much more of a problem. There's a lot more involvement in that than what used to be an issue. Mm-hmm. So that has created, changes within the gut, and there are things that has to be done to kind of help to overcome that.
Yeah, and very interesting. And I don't think people realize, what gluten is and
why that's actually an issue.
Well, let's talk about, if someone's listening out there or, what they can do. We're talking about, the gut and a key to children's health, but it's really for all people's health. We're focusing on children because in our last segment, you're going to be hearing a story of a mother with her 2 children that was helped greatly with gut issues. What would you recommend? I know one thing we do here is the GI effects stool kit. What will that show in that analysis?
Well, first thing is what is the normal bacteria levels? Mm-hmm. Most people, about 80 to 90% of the people, have too low of normal gut bacteria, so you have to build that up. Mm-hmm. Also, there's a balance in the gut bacteria. So you need to look at the balance, make sure that it's working properly, because if the gut flora, if it's out of balance, it can cause several different types of problems. One, you could actually have a poor absorption than what you should have, or you could actually have too much absorption, which can cause weight gain or weight loss and failure to thrive, and a lot of things go into that. So you need to look at what is the proportion. Do you have all the different types of bacteria that you should have? If not, then you need to supplement those in, and then you need to get the good bacteria balanced. You also have to have a high level of short-chain fatty acids within the gut, because that's what your small intestine feeds off of, and also the bacteria. So if you're low on your short-chain fatty acids, that becomes like a failure to thrive type of situation. And no matter how many good bacteria you can put into your gut, you're never going to be able to get them to grow unless you actually provide the food for them. And so that's one of the things that also shows up. Plus, you're also looking for pathological bacteria, pathological evidence of parasites, which, that's very thorough along those lines. If there are parasites, if there are abnormal bacteria that are going to cause pathogenic reactions, then those have to be identified. Also, if there's yeast, overgrowth of yeast or candida, that also shows up on there. It's not quite as common as people think. I have a lot of patients who come in who says, I've got candida, that's my main problem. I've been treating it for 5 years and still not under control. And when we do the stool kit, it's like, no, you're fine on your yeast. You have a bacterial infection going on. So you can't just. You have to do the check. Yeah, you have to do the checks, and a lot of even natural doctors are telling people things that aren't really true. So finding out really what's going on. Diagnostics. If you don't test, you don't know.
Well, what's nice too about our GI effects, it's covered by most insurances.
It is. That is definitely something that's very helpful for people because, again, the test is very thorough and it shows up all sorts of things.
And it's so important. We do it annually.
Sure.
Just to check our gut health.
Right. Also, if you're looking at the bile, is that getting into the gut as it should? Do you have your long-chain fatty acids? Those are all indication of what's going on with the liver and other things. Pancreatic enzymes, are those working properly? There's a huge number of things.
Well, let's talk about, how do you, at the Prather practice, build the gut bacteria? Or the absorption?
Well, you need to lay the groundwork for it. There are specialized types of products that we give that provide the nutrients for the bacteria. And then we also have found out because the National Institute of Health did very extensive study on which products will actually get into the gut and change the flora. So we use the ones that are recommended, that have been proven to be effective. And then, of course, we recheck them on do another stool sample and make sure that they're up to par. So we just not like, here, take this, hopefully it works. We test it before so that we know what the body needs. And we test it again to make sure that that's actually occurred. And
what one person might need, someone might need something different.
Oh, absolutely.
How about the importance of probiotics?
Well, that's involved with the with building the bacteria. So the probiotics are what is involved with that.
Okay. Should a stool test, maybe someone's listening out there that's pregnant or knows someone that's pregnant, would the stool test be helpful for them, and why?
It's absolutely essential for the pregnancy. You need to find out, because how healthy you are before you have the child is how healthy the child's going to be. So if you don't want to be woken up at night with a screaming baby because they've got colic, you need to fix yourself. So, having yourself tested, and if you can keep up your own good bacteria, have a good healthy gut, that's going to make a difference in the health of your child, how many infections they have, how well they learn, how happy they are, and whether they sleep through the night or not.
Important things.
So that's a very good motivator.
Very good motivator. Well, up next, we'll hear the story of a mom whose 2 daughters were visiting doctors 2 to 3 times a week, but had completely new children just 24 hours after visiting the Prather practice. Never miss an episode of The Voice of Health so that you can stay informed and empowered about your health. Get a podcast of our show automatically delivered to you every week by signing up for our show on iTunes. You can find that link on our website at thevoiceofhealthradio.com. And don't forget, thevoiceofhealthradio.com has complete archives of all of our past episodes with an audio library of information to help you add more life to your years and more years to your life. This is The Voice of Health with Dr. Robert Prather. The Voice of Health Wellness Tip with Dr. Robert Prather of the Prather Practice. How is TMJ treated at your office?
One of the most important ones is actually some jaw adjusting. The technique that I actually use, I invented. It needs to be extremely light adjustment. If you come in hard on the jaw, it's a very mobile type of a joint. Mm-hmm. So the angle, the pattern, and just the amount of right pressure. It's a very gentle type of thing. As a matter of fact, people just sit there and say it's sort of like a puff of air. You know, I mean, did you actually do anything except, you know, all of a sudden all their pain's gone.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the TMJ is one of the major causes of headaches. There's a different pattern if it's cervicogenic and jaw on the headaches. By the time just we do the consultation, I usually know where the headache's coming from. It also has a very strong emotional effect. There's actually a direct nerve that goes right to the brain from the jaw that goes directly to the emotional center in the brain. The emotions can affect the jaw, and then the jaw can affect the emotions. Jaw problems of any type of musculoskeletal pain, people commit more suicide from TMJ. About 80% of everyone's going to have TMJ sometime in their life. And many times people aren't even aware that that's where their problem's coming
from.
One of the things that you have to do is the neck has to be fixed to be able to fix the TMJ. If you don't get the top bone called the atlas fixed, you'll never be able to fix the TMJs.
And that's something you do. Your specialty is the atlas.
We actually have a specialty on that. Mm-hmm. So, but you can have TMJ problems and not have a neck problem too.
Okay.
But if the atlas is out, you're going to absolutely get nowhere with a TMJ. There's also a global type of a shift that occurs. The pelvis will actually shift. We've had people with elbow problems. We've had people with shoulder problems. And I said, it's coming from your jaw. And they're like, you know, well, it doesn't hurt up
How does that happen? Yeah.
And so I go up there and adjust their jaw, and I recheck their shoulder and their elbow, and I said, does that hurt anymore? And they go, no. Oh my gosh. I've had people working on this for 2 years and never gotten this far, and you do it in just like 5 seconds. Examination and diagnostics are absolutely so essential for really understanding a problem. If you don't know exactly what's going on, if you don't know what the cause is, then you can't fix it.
Right. And when you know, it makes the treatment easy.
Oh, yes.
Schedule your appointment at the Prather Practice, 317-848-8048. That's 317-848-8048. Or learn more on our website at thevoiceofhealthradio.com. The Prather Practice, restoring hope. You're listening to The Voice of Health with Dr. Robert Prather of the Prather Practice, where our mission is restoring hope to our patients. For our Restoring Hope segment this week, we now go to Elaine Reisner with another patient success story from the Prather Practice.
We are joined by Lisa to share her story at the Prather Practice. Lisa, what health situation first brought you into the practice?
Well, my daughters were 3 and 4 years old, and they struggled with their health from the day they were born. Up all night, screaming, crying, ear infections, constipation, just night terrors, everything you can imagine. And I was looking for some serious help.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And had you tried other doctors, other health options?
Oh, yes, definitely. The year before we actually came here, we were visiting 2 to 3 Western medicine doctors a week for a year.
Whoa.
Yeah, and all I got was, let's remove my youngest daughter's adenoids and tonsils, which I didn't like that idea. And my oldest daughter, they wanted to remove a portion of her intestines and bag her for a year. Now remember, at that time, my oldest daughter was only 3. So yeah, their ways of dealing with it were just not satisfying to me. And
Basically just taking something out and hopefully it fixes the problem.
when in doubt, cut it out. That just was not my philosophy.
Not okay. And how long ago did you guys start coming here?
Well, my youngest was 3 and my oldest was 4, and now they're 12 and 13.
Okay, so quite some time.
Oh, yes.
Now, so you basically saw these doctors, they gave you these options, and you're like, I don't think so. So you didn't try any of those options?
No, and they, of course, they presented drugs as well, and my children just did not do well with any drug they gave them. Matter of fact, made everything worse. We never could use a full round of what they recommended because my kids just would scream 24, 36, 48 hours straight. As long as they were on it, they were screaming constantly. So it didn't help any.
No. So tell me about your journey as far as, when you first came here, what did we decide to do? And then how did we progress? And how did things progress with the girls as well?
Yes. Well, we started out, I remember calling here and I spoke to somebody at the front desk and I told them that they wanted to remove Ellie's adenoids and tonsils and how I was against that. And this was the first doctor's office that said, all right, good job. Let's at least look into it and see if that's actually necessary. Because no one was really looking into it. That just was what they said. So I knew, oh my gosh, I think I might find somebody that was willing to work with me. So we did lab work. We did stool analysis, a UA, urine analysis, and a hair analysis on both my daughters. And we found viruses in their pancreas. We found my oldest daughter where they wanted to remove a portion of her intestines. Dr. Prather found a feline leukemia virus in her intestines, which was causing all that problem that she was having. And he was able to get that in remission after 3 months, but less than 24 hours, I had new children.
That's incredible.
Completely new children. Less than 24 hours. Matter of fact, it wasn't even a full round of supplements and homeopathics that we got in that day because by the time we got out of the doctor's office, we only got 2 rounds in. So it wasn't even a full 3 rounds.
Jeez, that's incredible.
Yes.
It's quite a change.
It was. I felt there was light at the end of the tunnel for the first time. In 4 years.
Sure. And it was catered to your needs. It wasn't just, this is what we do for everyone else, so we'll just do this. We really looked at, I'm guessing we looked at because I wasn't here obviously that long ago, but, we looked at the diagnostics and they're catered to the patient. Yeah, because if some of their symptoms were very similar to each other, but their treatments were completely different. And some of their causes were completely different. Okay. Awesome. So, but, yeah, it was pretty amazing. Awesome. So, and then tell me where you're at today with the girls. We still come to Dr. Prather for all our healthcare needs, whether we're sick. And we have thyroid and pituitary issues, so we treat all that through Dr. Prather, and any digestive issues that we have, we've been treating that through here, and we've been able to avoid my children have been on less pharmaceuticals than most children their age. And that's been great for them because pharmaceuticals haven't been their friend. And I'm not saying pharmaceuticals are 100% bad. It's just for my children, they were causing more problems than helping. And so we've been able to avoid most of those throughout their lives. Awesome. Cool. So for someone out there that is listening that may be dealing with a child that just, they know something's going on, but they can't figure out what's going on, what is some advice that you would give them? Don't give up. Come seek something different, like Dr. Prather's office. There is hope, and that was one of the things that I noticed when I first came to Dr. Prather's office. He had the words restoring hope. And that's what I was so much looking for, because I had lost all hope. My children were failing, and we were losing them. And that path kept moving on forward to losing them. But when we came here, that path ended and started reversing. And I get the chills right now thinking about it. But he restored my hope.
Awesome. Well, and it's always fun to see you girls come in, and I know they've been coming in whether it be a cold or something else going on, so it's cool to see them progress and really take care of their health here. So thank you for sharing your story, and we'll be back with another testimony.
Thank you.
The Prather practice is located at 8902 North Meridian Street on the north side of Indianapolis, just south of the I-465 loop. If we can help you to achieve better health, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with our office at 317-848-8048. That's 317-848-8048. Join us again here next week or anytime on our website at thevoiceofhealthradio.com for The Voice of Health with Dr. Robert Prather. The Prather Plan weight loss program is safe, comprehensive, medically supervised, and designed just for you. Forget the trendy diets and instead start with a roadmap that actually resets your body's metabolism for optimal fat burning and increased energy. The Prather Plan has 6, 10, or 14-week programs with a proven record of success and with guaranteed weight loss. The Prather Plan is an individualized program that is tailored to your needs to create healthy new habits in your life. You'll receive support from a certified health counselor, a nutritionist, and an exercise physiologist for maximum results. Many weight loss programs can include unhealthy loss of muscle or organ weight. We target your ideal body fat percentage so you can lose body fat in a healthy way where the pounds stay off. Contact the Prather Practice today to schedule a consultation and create a healthier you. 317-848-8048 or on the web at thevoiceofhealthradio.com. The Prather Practice, restoring hope.